Hello there, and welcome back to a new series on my YouTube channel. This series is basically going over redstone components starting from the very basics of redstone, and then working up to the more technical stuff. So if you want to improve on your redstone skills, or you're just starting from scratch, then you're in the right place. I'm no redstone expert, but I can at least teach you what I know. This series is going to run until the end of December, and at the end of December, if I feel like there's still more that I haven't taught you guys, well, maybe it'll go into the new year. We'll see. Now before we get into this, you might not want to start in the middle if you have not seen the very first video of the series. I'll link that in the top right card right now. So go ahead and give that card a click and check out that video. That way you get an introduction of what the series is about and everything that we covered in that first lesson. As I mentioned in that first video, redstone is weird. And there's probably going to be some of this that just doesn't logically make sense. Actually, scratch that, I can guarantee you that there is some of this that does not logically make sense. For that reason, I have provided a world download that you can find down inside the description below. Psst. Drop a like while you're down there, it really helps out the channel. And I would also highly recommend that you make a new world on a creative world and just go inside a creative mode and kind of mess around with it. And hopefully after you play with them for a bit, you'll start to memorize their characteristics, how they work, how they interact with other blocks, and things of that nature. So if you look in front of me, we have two different blocks. This block on the right hand side is called an opaque block, which is most commonly referred to as a solid block, and that means that this thing is able to transmit redstone. So if we turn on this lever here, we can turn that on and it's going to power that redstone lamp behind it. And then we can turn it off and it's of course going to turn that off as well. And we also have this block over here, which is a non-opaque block, which is most commonly referred to as a transparent block. Transparent does not mean that you can see through this block. Well, it does, but not so much inside of a redstone sense. See, whenever we say transparent, we're more so talking about the functionality of redstone. So if we turn this on, you can see, because it's a transparent block, it does not power that redstone lamp. However, as I mentioned, it does not visibly have to be transparent in order to be considered transparent. For example, we can remove this and place down a glowstone lamp here, which is also a transparent block. And we have the same functionality as the glass, it's not going to power that lamp. However, if we remove this and place down something like a sea lantern, which you would think would be a transparent block, it is not considered a transparent block on the Bedrock edition, and is actually solid and allows the redstone signal to pass through it. However, there is a bunch of different blocks, and although some of them might be considered transparent, they might not always fully function the same way as a fully transparent block or a fully opaque block. To show you what I mean, I can remove this block here and place down a piston, and that piston is going to go up, although it does not power the redstone lamp on the side of it. However, if I take a redstone torch and place that redstone torch on the side of it, then whenever I power it, it's going to turn that redstone torch on and off. But if we do the same thing with a piece of glass, of course that's not going to work. And the same goes for the glowstone as well. And this is one of the main reasons why I urge you to go inside of a creative world and kind of mess around with the blocks and see what they can do, what they can't do, and how they react to certain things. Another incredible source of a whole plethora of information is going to be on the Bedrock wiki, which is linked down inside the description below as well. Check that out. You can basically find out everything that you need to know about every single item inside of the game. And that is really going to be a vital way of learning the redstone and how it functions. And will also be a long-standing reference guide for you to always go back and double check on. Because, well, there's hundreds of items inside of the game and it's almost impossible to memorize how each one of them work. So for ease of understanding, we're going to go by the most common terminology, and we're going to consider these opaque blocks, these solid blocks, and these over here, the non-opaque blocks, we're going to consider those transparent. So with this, we have the redstone running over top of all of these transparent blocks, and as you can see, if we turn on this lever, it's not going to be able to power any of these, because there is no redstone line connecting to the redstone lamps on either this lamp or this lamp over here. And typically it would be able to power this block if it was an opaque block and then power the lamp here. However, because the glass being a transparent block does not conduct the redstone, it's not going to be able to power this block here. And to demonstrate that, we can throw this lever on here, which is pretty much identical. However, we have the opaque solid blocks here, and these are going to allow these lamps to be powered. In the world of redstone on the Minecraft Bedrock edition, there is a ton of different components for redstone, but keep in mind, just because it's a component does not mean that the redstone dust will automatically connect to that component. Take for instance here, we have the lamps and we have the redstone wire running right down the side of the lamps here. If we go ahead and hit this lever on, then it's going to power the redstone dust all the way down, but because this is not actually connecting to the lamp, it's not going to power this. Same thing down here. This is a tactic that I will use frequently, which is called redirecting the redstone signal. So without this button here, the signal would not be turned, it would be going straight into this lamp, and then it would actually be powering it because the redstone line is actually going into that lamp. You can see this by removing this button here. However, because over here the redstone is not actually going into this lamp, it's not going to actually power it. The majority of redstone components will work like this, so you can take a dispenser and put a dispenser down. You could place a dropper down, and it's going to do the same thing. As I mentioned, there is a ton of redstone components that are going to interact with redstone like this. Learning this mechanic and memorizing all of the different components that will actually have the redstone pass by it or have the redstone connect to it is vital whenever trying to learn how to compact a circuit and work with a bunch of different lines of redstone inside of a close proximity. However, as I have mentioned, most redstone components will not connect. However, there are some that will, such as the pistons here. We also have a daylight sensor here, which is of course going to power the redstone line because it is picking up the sunlight. However, I'm showing you this because I want to show you that it actually connects to the redstone dust. We also have the pistons here. The target block is a very handy block as well, and that also allows for the redstone dust to connect to it. Let me show you what I'm talking about by further illustrating my point. Let's say that we made a contraption and we have a piston up here that is facing this way. Our goal is to power this piston here, and we can't really go out in this direction because we have a separate circuit over here that we don't want to power. We also have a separate circuit up top here that we don't want to power, so we can't really bring the redstone dust up like you typically would. So because the redstone line does not interact with the solid block, that kind of makes for an issue, and typically we would have to reroute everything and redesign some of the circuitry in order to make this configured the way that we want it to be, which would normally result in probably bringing this out here, bringing your redstone dust down and around, and then putting a repeater here. That way we could actually power that piston just like that. However, that may or may not interfere with the circuit that's right next to it, so there might have to be a bunch of circuitry moved around doing it that way. If you learn how to use the target block appropriately, you can break this, and then you can just place a target block there, and then instead of having to move everything around, you have something that's then going to have the redstone wire interact with it, and then pass the power through that and into the piston. Another very handy thing that you might want to take note of is the button, and you can use this or you can use levers or any other thing that attracts redstone that does not power everything else around it to redirect the redstone, and this is very handy in a lot of different scenarios. The reason being is if we go down here and say we have a piston here inside of a circuit that we want to power and we have redstone there. That redstone is going to power this, but it's also going to power that redstone block. Say we don't have a redstone block there, say that we have a hopper line running there. Maybe this is a mob farm or something. You can see that hopper line is now locked because we have that redstone dust going directly into the side of that hopper. However, we still need this piston to be powered, and we can't really move any of this around because we have circuitry to the side, to that side. We have circuitry above and below this. It's all intertwined. The easiest way to fix this is going to be to grab something to redirect it and place that right there. Then we have this redirecting the redstone over into the button. It is now no longer locking that hopper, however we still have that piston powered just like we need it to be. Just keep in mind, if you do have a redstone component that does actually interact with the redstone dust, then redirecting this is not going to work at all, because no matter what you place next to this, it's still going to power it because that specific component interacts with the redstone dust. So before we go any further, we do need to talk about another rule of redstone, and that's going to be hard powered versus soft powered. If you look at this lamp on the right hand side, we have this repeater going into the block here, which is going to hard power it, and it will basically soft power any block that is adjacent to it. So if we throw this lever on here, it's going to light up both of those, and then we can take this, and if we place a lamp here, it's not going to light this lamp up because it's coming from the soft powered one here, and the soft powered one cannot power any adjacent blocks. However, if we remove this lamp and we place it over top of the hard powered one, because this is adjacent from the hard powered one, it's going to be able to power it. Same thing goes if we put it on the side or underneath, as long as it's adjacent to the hard powered block. Now on this side here we have what is called being soft powered. If we turn this lever on here, you can see that lamp will light up, and we can place a lamp on the side of it. That's not going to light up, and that's not going to light up on this side either. And that is because these are all adjacent to a soft powered block. However, if we place one on top here, keep in mind it is going to light up, but it's not going to light up because it's adjacent to this lamp. It's going to light up because it actually has a piece of redstone dust going into the side of it. So if we remove that redstone dust there, you can see that lamp's going to go out. You can see it further demonstrated here with a circuit that I use pretty commonly. We have this soft powering this block here, And because it's soft powered, it cannot spread this to any adjacent blocks, i.e. the redstone dust below it. However, if we take a redstone repeater and place a redstone repeater here, that's going to hard power that block, which is then going to soft power the block that's adjacent to it, i.e. this redstone dust, and then power the rest of this redstone. So to break this down into simple layman's terms, a hard power component is going to be one that is powered by a power component directly, or by a repeater or a comparator. All other connections are going to be considered a soft connection. So even if we remove this lever here and bring this one closer, place down the lever there, redstone there, and turn it on, even though we still have a signal strength of 15 going into here, that does not matter because it's not influenced by the signal strength, it's influenced by whether or not the game thinks it's hard powered or soft powered. We can take the redstone repeater, which puts out the exact same redstone signal strength, and as you can see, it powers it just like before. And that's pretty much going to be the same for any other power component as mentioned that powers it. So we have a button here that's going to hard power it, a lever here that's going to hard power it, and also an observer that's going to hard power it as well. And this is the same for many other power components. And to further illustrate this, it's not going to make any different if you use a transparent block because this will not conduct any redstone signal, or a solid block here. Because this solid block is being soft powered, it's not going to power any adjacent blocks. If you wanted to power this redstone line, you would have to hard power one of these solid blocks, or run the redstone line down to the bottom here. Now if you watched the very first episode of this series, which I really hope that you did, you might remember me saying that there was some rules that you needed to follow, some things that sometimes apply, and some things that, well, just straight up don't make sense. Kind of like the English alphabet, you know, you have A, E, I, O, and U, and, well, sometimes Y. Well, over here we have our sometimes Y. So we have this, which this redstone line is going to come over here, and it's going to soft power all of these blocks here. And if you remember, soft power, it should not be able to power any adjacent blocks. However, because these redstone components are pretty much touching the block, this does actually allow for this to be powered, just like that. However, if we were to move this over one block, it would still be powered because it's underneath another solid block. As you can see, the transparent one obviously does not transmit the signal. But if we go over here to the right and place down a piece of redstone dust, you would think that the functionality would be the same. However, because there's pretty much air between it, it's not going to power that redstone dust. But it is going to power the piston because the piston is contacting that soft powered block. This would also apply for most any other block that would be able to come in contact with that, so you could put a lamp down there and it would still work. Like I said, redstone is confusing, and that is why I urge you to go to a testing world and kind of play around with it and learn all of the mechanics. Above here we have some pistons, and no matter what you have above the redstone dust, it's never going to be powered from a redstone line that is directly below that component. So regardless if this is a lamp up here, or if it's pistons, or any other component, no matter how much you try, that's never going to be able to power those because it has an air block beneath it. However, there are some exclusions that apply to that. Like if you have an observer here, there is obviously a large amount of air there. However, it's still going to be able to observe the redstone line turning on and off. Now the way that the lamps work is kind of funky because we are not hard powering these at all. But if we turn that light on, it's going to turn on both of these. So it's going to pretty much think that it's hard powering this block, but it's not really hard powered because it's not being powered by a component directly. And that's because we have this redstone dust in between it. But because of the characteristics of lamp, it is going to power this one here, acting the same way as being hard powered here and soft powered here. However, because soft power is the weakest version of being powered, it's not going to carry on to anything further. And you can see this demonstrated here again, and that's basically going to transfer to all of the adjacent blocks as well. However, if you place down a diagonal component, it's not going to transfer to that. The redstone goes by what's called taxi cab distance, and that basically means traveling to your adjacent blocks, aka your cardinal directions. And pretty much the same way, you can flip it around up top, it's not going to make much of a difference. Same thing with over here, you can power it from the top and it's going to power that one on the bottom. However, this one here is a little bit different because we are powering this one here, which is going to power this one on the top and this one on the bottom. However, since we are soft powering this block here, it's only going to power this block here and not the one below it. So if we hit this lever, you can see what I'm talking about. That one on the bottom will never light up. I hope that makes sense. A lot of this is pretty complicated to explain. Well guys, that's going to wrap up lesson number 2 for this Redstone series. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video and maybe even learned something new. If you enjoyed the video, consider dropping a like. It really does help out the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow with a new lesson. Bye.